It's the Knicks, Jets, etc. podcast with Alex Trataros, John Meleka, and Raisi on the beat. Let's go.
What's good, everyone? Alex Trataros here with another Knicks episode of the Knicks, Jets, etc. podcast. And with me, as always, my buddy, my close pal, the man with the plan, the one and only John Meleka. Before we ask John how he is doing, everyone, you already know what to do. If you listen to this podcast and you haven't already done so, please make sure to subscribe. We're on all audio listening platforms. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, Alexa, Stitcher, you name it. We are there. If you listen to us on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to give us that 5-star rating. And if you listen to us on Apple, please make sure to leave a comment. We're also on YouTube, Knicks, Jets, etc. Period. Make sure to find the page, subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you know when a new episode drops. When you watch a video, hit the like button, leave a comment, add to the conversation. Let us know what you think. It's been a minute since John and I spoke about the Knicks draft, so you know we got some different views. So we're going to get into that as well today. And we got a guest. We got to get a guest on as well. We'll get his takes as well. We'll introduce him later when we get to that point. Also, we got another podcast on the YouTube channel, Winning Picks Weekly. John, video producer Greg, our guy and co-host Chip Murphy. These guys go through every sport possible. If you need to put money down on the line, these guys got you covered. MLB, NBA, PGA, NHL, NFL, any sport, every sport. These guys are probably going to do cricket as well, but that's for another time. And then last, and certainly not least, please make sure to follow us on all social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, you name it. We are there. John, what's going on, bro? How you doing today?
What's up, man? I'm doing great. I mean, in the world of the NBA, the world of basketball, the drama continues, the soap opera continues. It feels like the NBA Finals was like 6.5 months ago at this point. So I'm excited for this upcoming week, this upcoming tampering week, coming off of a crazy NBA draft where we didn't even draft until like 3.5 hours in. So there's a lot to get into here. The Yankees and the Mets still honestly murdering the MLB, still looking like that World Series might be a thing. So I know Jeremy has some feelings on that as well. Our esteemed guest that we have today, I mean, honestly, I can't think of a more perfect person to have on here, as you obviously are here. You're listening to Knicks Film School. You hear them going on and on, and their differing views, and it's the same differing views that Alex and I have. So I'm really excited for this episode. I'm really excited to get into what the Knicks did, what the Knicks are about to do, and what the Knicks may or may not be thinking, dude. So I'm hyped. How are you?
I'm good, man. And since you already said it, Jeremy Cohen, the man, the myth, the legend himself, maybe for all I know, Brock Aller's child. I don't know, the way that he's able to manipulate the cap and put on cap or no cap like there's no tomorrow. This guy legit gets into the weeds of it. He might just be related to this guy. He might be the child. Who knows? Jeremy, how you doing, man?
Here, bro.
I'm good. Listen, if Brock is my dad, then I got to talk to the dad who raised me, because he's in for quite the surprise. I'm doing well, thanks. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad we could discuss this stuff, and really excited.
Yeah, man. So let's get into it. I mean, I'm sad that I'm going to have to make a rehash this type of stuff again, because I did catch you and Macri going at it, and then having Claudio saying, why don't we take 10 seconds to laugh at the Brooklyn Nets when it got heated with the discussion of the trade that the Knicks made, and then going down the rabbit holes of what they're going to do and whatnot. But look, we know the Knicks traded out of the first round. They did they made my brain melt that day after just saying, hey, the Knicks traded out after they drafted Ousmane Dieng. And then they're like, okay, that's not a guy that's like really on their radar. What's going on here? Trade to OKC. You get the 3 first-round protected picks that they had, which was the Denver that they traded. You had who was it? You also had Detroit, and you also had Washington. Traded the Denver pick over to Charlotte to draft Durant. put Durant with Kemba to go put him to Detroit, and then we get the Milwaukee pick, the 2025 Milwaukee pick. And I'm just like, I'm over here still to this day. And I was even talking about last night on Knicks Fan TV. I'm still irritated, man. I'm still irritated with this. I honestly look at this. I look at this move. I'm like, we just did the Pistons a favor in an attempt to get Ivy. And I'm looking at it like, is Kemba's contract really that big that we needed to put him with a player that the Pistons really wanted to move off salary? I don't know. I'm pretty tight about that. So that's just my feeling. So, Jeremy, I'm going to go to you and ask your feelings on that, because why should I not be mad?
Well, that's fair. See, the thing is, I feel like if you don't like what the Knicks did, I can't blame you. And if you like what the Knicks did, then I agree with you. But if Alex, can we rapid fire real quick? Because I want to get your thoughts on something.
Sure.
All right. So going into the draft, what did you want the Knicks to do the most?
The most, I want them to get either Ivy, draft Johnny Davis, or take a wing to add to the depth, because wing is still an issue on this team. Outside of Cam, I don't think we have that position solved. I think Quentin Grimes is just like a traditional 2, where he's going to guard 2s. Maybe on some occasion he can guard a 3. He can obviously guard 1s. But I'm looking to add depth at the wing position, so that way we have just interchangeable defenders, guys who can also score, because we still need more talent on this team. And realistically, moving forward, pulling back on the vets. So I was looking for more youth and fewer vets.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we know they tried to trade up for Ivy, so that, I mean, we were all seems cool with that. So the next thing, would you have felt comfortable with the Knicks trading to 8 or 9, probably trading the Mavs first and maybe something else, in order to leapfrog the Wizards to get Johnny Davis?
I think Johnny Davis is that dude, so I kind of would have felt a little bit more comfortable, probably more than most, because I know some people would say there's no one really to trade up for in this draft. I probably would have done it if that's a guy they really believe in.
Gotcha. Totally fair. So Johnny Davis is on the team. Let's roll with it.
Yeah.
Where's Johnny Davis getting minutes? Because presumably the Knicks aren't going to, even if they move some of these veterans into traded player exceptions, they're not going to move all of them, right? So like, you're still going to have one of Burks and Fournier most likely, and you're going to have Grimes, and you're ideally going to have RJ. Unless you're trading Cam, then Johnny Davis is on the outside looking in. Is that fair?
That's fair. And I guess for me, I look at it more as like Cam's already on the outside looking in. Honestly, he's been throwing in more trade deals and seen playing time on the court. So for me, I'm like, this dude's probably not going to be here that long.
So it's kind of like the thought process of they're going to move 2 of Fournier, Burks, and Cam, and then that would theoretically create an open spot, and that's where Johnny Davis comes into play.
Yeah, that's how I was thinking about it.
Okay, I got you. So, and just in general, are you? We'll get into it more, but are you Team Brunson or are you not Team Brunson?
Oh, I like Jalen Brunson.
So, are you comfortable with 4 years, $100 million
as a max? I'm on the teetering edge of feeling comfortable, but I'll do it because I do like Brunson.
Okay, so you'll do that. So I guess the question then is like, well, where do the Knicks get the money to do it? Because if they are above the salary cap, then the leverage is with Dallas, because then they get to, play a part, not just in, hey, we give you the 5th year, we give you more money in general, but if you want him, well, we're going to do everything we can to like milk you, New York, for what you're worth. The leverage then swings the other way if the money starts to clear up. And then by removing the 11th pick, it's $4.5 million out the door. And then by moving Kemba out, that's another 9. And then when you factor in the Knicks had like a little bit more than $2 million in cap space, we're at $16.3 million if you still keep Mitch on the books. So it's like, the way I see it is I would have loved to have had a young player getting minutes, especially if Cam is on the way out. How you're going to be able to do that? I still see any situation where, because we know Tibbs rolls 10 deep, if you have 6 of those 10 players who are under the age of 25, that's your youth movement. And if you have Jalen Brunson, who to me is like the ultimate raise your floor table setter who can make the players around you better. That's 7 guys, presumably going to have a veteran, like I said, one of Burks and Fournier probably still here. Didn't even talk about Noel, but we can just pretend he doesn't exist for the moment. So that brings us up to 8. And then there's the whole, is Randle going to be here or not question, which is 9. And then Jericho Sims coming into the fold, that's 10. So the way I see it is you're still committing to the youth. Typically, I would say quality is better than quantity, but if that quality is impeding you from getting Brunson, if it's a player that might not see time, and I understand your situation, you're saying like, that's great. But then on the flip end of it, if you're the Knicks, now you're back to equilibrium with your picks, most likely. Like maybe you can turn Burks into a distant first. And I didn't even mention Derrick Rose. Like maybe you do something with Rose, maybe you keep him there. What happens if Rose stays? You do Rose quickly. Is Grimes going to be at the 3? Is it Johnny Davis? If it's not Grimes, is Grimes going to see playing time, or is he on the outside looking in as well as he was beforehand, which we know he should not be in this case moving forward? So like,
please don't open that door.
Right. So like that, I think, is the challenge, where it's just like it's so many moving parts that on the surface it's like the Knicks had a terrible season, should have had the 11th pick. What the hell are they doing? And now it's like, okay, well, I understand this is all for Brunson, but you have to get Brunson. Okay, well, if you do get Brunson, then where does it leave you off? The way I see it is that, and that's why, as you guys know, I was so eager to wait, and still, like, even as we've gotten the information, still waiting until the end of free agency, where we can finally sit down and say, where do we start with? What do we finish with? And what I think will be happening is that the Knicks will just be a younger, better team with more picks that's better set up for the future. And if you asked any Knicks fan before the draft if that was something that would appeal to them, every single one would say yes, except for, I shouldn't say everyone, the majority would say yes. The few who wouldn't are those who are clinging to the idea of tanking, which the Knicks just aren't going to do.
Oh yeah, it's not even necessarily looking for tanking. I think the one thing I'll change up is that I'm cool with Brunson, but I'm also fine with actually giving Emmanuel quickly the opportunity to run a point guard, and that could change things too if you wanted to go in that direction. So you don't even have to spend money. You can still bring in a young guy in. You can still try to move vets and still get more assets that way, or just try to shed salary. So that would be another way I would think that, all right, maybe someone like Johnny Davis gets some time in. But then it gets back to who's your head coach? How many veterans does he want to play? Who's you like the stability behind? I get that, which is why it's a frustration, man. Look, I know it's look. Have you watched Severance?
I love Severance.
Okay, so
that finale was one of the best I've ever seen.
Okay, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the finale yet. I'm on episode 5 or 6. But
Okay.
you know, oh my god, why I can't remember the woman's name who's like grappling with trying Helly R, right?
I was gonna say it's because you're severed from the TV room, which is where all your knowledge is.
Exactly. That's where all my knowledge is. But
Right.
it's like Helly R, right? Where you're thinking, all right, I know, like right here, this is what I want the Knicks to look like. But it's also being over here saying, I know what we have with, and it's like that conflicting thing, that conflicting nature of just like, it can't exist because this is over here. So I get it, but it's like, that's not what I want. You know what I mean? I think after like last season, if it went a little bit better last season, I could be like, all right, I could tolerate it. But from what we saw last season, it's like, I think we got to go complete youth with the right veterans mixed in. That's kind of where I'm standing.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I it's just so funny. I mean, this whole episode thus far, Jeremy's been psychoanalyzing you, Alex, and I absolutely love it because he's getting to the bottom of your issue where you just wanted the shiny toy, man. We were scouting them for a while. For the last couple of months, honestly, we've been just watching these players and it got, been grinding out for the last couple of weeks. And now finally comes, it's our pick, right? There's a little bit of drama starting with the Pistons pick all the way to us, right? Oh my God, and then there was like a little bit of a Spurs rumor, right? Like, oh, they want Yang, like we have to get him so we can trade him. Like there was a lot of stuff going on for us to just not get anything. Like it just like all the air came out of the room and you're like, all right, what do we have? And I feel like that is shaping where the narrative is coming from. Because if you want youth and you want to go with these veterans that we already have, we just got draft picks. Like if you truly want a youth movement, we just got 1 million first-round picks in the next. I know, like we like to say 7 years because that's how far we could trade. I think that's ridiculous. Let's just talk about the next couple of years. Like we have, even if they don't. I know you're about to say. I know you're about to say they're protected and they're not going to vest. I know they're not going to convey. But even if they don't, it still becomes a youth movement. And that's when I totally understand what you're saying with Severance, even though I didn't watch it, is because the head coach and the GM at this point, they're see it like they only have like 1, maybe 2 more years to kind of get this ball rolling, and they're going to be gone. So they're not going to care about any of these draft picks. Like, so I'm wondering if this is what you want. It just maybe didn't get the shiny toy because it gives us the ammo to either use our picks for a veteran to come in, hopefully a superstar, but I'm not going to get my hopes up at all because it's always going to shoot me in the foot. Or on the other side, you're gonna let IQ play. You know what I mean? You're gonna keep your draft picks, and you're gonna do exactly what you want. You're gonna let IQ play, hopefully with a point guard. Like I know we're so against Jalen Brunson, and I understand why. It's because we're moving the whole planet. We are spending $25 million, even though it only becomes like the 14th, 15th highest paid point guard, which is fine. I feel like he's the 15th, maybe 7th to 17th point guard in the NBA. Like that, I don't think that's that crazy, just as a side note. But on top of that, we know that he can play with other guards. So why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want Brunson to kind of be next to a Dinwiddie / Luka in an IQ? We know with RJ, like those three, they could play that sort of perimeter / role. I don't know. I just feel like we're just stuck in the moment right now, and we're just so nervous because it just never works out for the New York Knicks. And that's why I'll give Jeremy the credit for it. Like the Cam Reddish trade, it's not necessarily that you think Cam Reddish is going to be amazing, and now that he's not playing with the Knicks, it's a bust. You just thought he was better than the Charlotte pick, like just value wise. So I feel like they're building all of these assets, and we're just impatient. So Jeremy, I want to know what you think about, first of all, Jalen Brunson's contract. And just adding Brunson, like what does that do to this team? Just like forget like a crazy trade, let's just extend Mitch because I know you have that anyway, kind of built in. Let's cut Taj and bring him back, right? Because that's the hold. And like, what does this team look like?
Yeah, I don't think it looks like a great team, but I think it looks like one that's better. That it was the end of the season, but we saw what the younger players were able to do. They played with an energy that just was lacking the entire season. Was some of that because Randle wasn't in the lineup? Maybe. Maybe it's just that they also played with more urgency because they're hungrier. They want to prove themselves in the league. When you get paid, it's a lot easier to not live up to a contract because, not to say these players don't try, but like this is so much what you worked for. You secured what could very easily be generational wealth. Like you don't necessarily have to go after every single play. So I really like Brunson. I've liked him for a while. I just feel as though Knicks fans for so long have been talking about, we need a point guard. The Knicks need a point guard more than anything. And it just feels like it has to be a star point guard. And it's like, okay, but what if I told you could bring in a really good point guard who has had success even without one of the best players on the planet, and he can play with, not, dominate in a way that like Julius Randle might, where he can create the dribble penetration that you need to just get more going on an offense that has sputtered for over a decade.
Yeah, Max Kleber could be the best power. You could think about Max Kleber for like 3 games in a row. Yeah.
Right. Like if you get better players, you're going to maximize the players that are around them. And I don't think people necessarily recognize it or want to, because they get too hung up on two things. Number one is that Brunson is a ceiling capper. It's like, I get that. And granted, the reason why the Mavs were in the Western Conference Finals was because of Luka Doncic. No one's suggesting otherwise. But it also goes to show that if you build this right, you can get to a point where you can still win with a player like Jalen Brunson. And if you're thinking of, well, the price tag is too much, I mean, sure. Was he earning less than $2 million? Yes. But you also had Tim Hardaway Jr., who was out, and he was making over $20 million. You had Davis Bertans, who didn't really play a huge role down the stretch, had a few nice games. Mostly just all he pretty much did was take threes. He was making like $16 million. There's enough essentially dead money that the Mavs had where it's like, it's comparable to more than what Jalen Brunson's making, like if you even average it out. That's the first one, the ceiling capper, where it's a problem. And the second is then the money, because fans don't often take into consideration that when the salary cap goes up, the amount that players make goes up too. So like I think a lot of fans are stuck like maybe 2 to 3 summers behind in terms of catching up for when the math works out.
I think you're being
And
generous.
yeah, no, honestly, there could be people who are still stuck in the like 2015 days where it was like before the salary cap jumped up, and it's like Aaron Aflalo at $8 million. Like, yeah, well, Aaron Aflalo $8 million then is probably like Aaron Aflalo like $18 million now.
Exactly.
And like, but it feels so much worse because the money's different. But
there's a prime example, and it was so close and it was so recent. And I know Alex and I specifically were arguing about this for, I would say, 3 months. Like it was, what are we going to do with Fred VanVleet? Should we offer him X amount of money? Is it going to be not worth it? If you tell me right now, even with him not playing for a majority, of this season, I would still take that contract right now. I completely 100% regret it. And the salary cap, as we all know, is going to go up in 2 years. So if you sign Brunson to a 4-year deal, at least on that last year, you're getting a discount. I mean, I know that's not anything to go home and brag about, but it's something to just, at least have.
Yeah. And again, if you give him that player option in year 4, then it lines up exactly where the salary cap spikes. So that's exactly how I see it. I see it. It's a 3-year plan with Jalen Brunson where you just try to be a better team than you were, because the whole then thing about like, well, the Knicks are in no man's land. Okay, well, they still have the assets to go get someone, especially in the draft. If there's a star available that works with their timeline, then they could potentially get that player too. But then, like, you look at the Clippers, you look at the Nets, these teams that didn't have to be that good for that long to just show, like, yeah, we don't have any, like the Nets ceiling. Their best player is D'Angelo Russell, and he was an all-star that year, and he has not made it back since. But it was like the idea of the potential, and then he wasn't even there for it. The Nets just looked really good because he elevated them. Like, if we get to the point where we don't talk about the Knicks as a dumpster fire or a doormat, then we're at a point where we can have a more serious conversation. If you take us seriously, other stars are going to as well. And if you plan your cap sheet out accordingly, you can really do well at a time when, like, let's face it, that cap, if it's jumping in 2025, which it should, Lakers are going to be out of the picture, right? There's not going to be anyone to like build a core around. The Clippers are going to still be paying Kawhi and Paul George. The Bulls are going to be dealing with Zach LaVine and however else they decide to fail to build with him.
Maybe Gobert.
Well, maybe, who knows? But like, the Nets are going to be
Not
well,
drafting.
right? Like their timeline is like now and not 3 years from now when they're a compelling team. So like Miami is going to still have Jimmy Butler and Bam, and they're not going to, like, they'll have some money, but it's the sort of thing where if they're paying Tyler Hero, like what that situation is. So it's not like these teams can't get out of it, but the cleanest fit in terms of like using rookie contracts and second contracts that are cheaper and creating money and having a lot of picks and being able to make trades and do whatever like the Clippers did. That's how you best set yourself up for success, in my opinion, for the Knicks. And Brunson can help at least elevate you to the point where we're in the conversation and not, hey, KD and Kyrie want to join Kevin Knox, and the sky's the limit.
So enticing.
It really is.
So enticing. No, and I like Brunson. Like, we were on this pod throughout the entire season just arguing because people were slandering the living daylights out of Brunson. Like, why would you want Brunson? Why would you want this? I'm like, I don't know. The dude can play on, off ball, shoot. Like, he has the ability to finish over bigs in the paint. He's in the top like 80th, 90th like percentile if you look at cleaning the glass when it comes to finishing around the rim for a guy his size. He can pass. He can do everything that you want from a point guard. Sure, he's undersized. His defense is like average, but came from Nova. Like, honestly, if you come from Nova and playing point guard, that's a pedigree of itself. Most of the Nova players just in general are like, just, you can count on them, whether it's like Josh Hart, Kyle Lowry. And I put Brunson kind of like not exactly, but closer to that range of Kyle Lowry, as in he will raise your floor. You can get someone that can organize the offense. Not the defensive guy that Kyle Lowry is. And I won't even put it out there as like being the all-star that Kyle Lowry is, but somewhere close to that stratosphere where I will rely on him like every single game. And I think he would definitely help guys like Randle, RJ get in a situation. That's just kind of what we need moving into the season, because we saw way too many times last season where the Knicks down the final stretch of the game, just unwind. And that's where you have someone like Brunson come in and be like, all right, guys, calm the fuck out. I got this. We get you into your spots position. Let's go. But there's another guy that's like out there for trade talks. I mean, sheesh, just seeing rumors that maybe Gallo and a couple first rounders can go get this dude, DeJounte Murray. How do you feel about DeJounte Murray, not only as a player, but fitting in within the cap? Because he'd be cheaper than Brunson, right?
Depends what your definition of cheaper is. Like
For now.
for me, it's all
Cap,
about
okay, for cap wise.
100%, which is great. It's more like I think that the Knicks, and I feel this way as well, would prefer to just sign Jalen Brunson and keep all of the assets that they have versus trading for DeJounte Murray and trading those assets. Because I think within the Knicks' mind, it's, well, we can get someone to elevate the offense for just money, and it doesn't cost us a whole lot else to make the math work and get him. I think also when you consider like a lot of the pull-up opportunities that Jalen Brunson has, that is something that will interest the Knicks quite a lot as well. I think Murray is a better player, 100%. I also feel as though a lot of fans are higher on Murray than I am, but in terms of like as a fit, yeah, financially it's great, but you also wouldn't necessarily want to clear cap space to get Murray and then have him dump him into cap space, because basically the reason why the Hawks and the Hawks have to, if they're the ones trading for him, have to match salary to begin with, but like you want more back if you are the Spurs, I would imagine. You don't
Why are you
just
taking Gallo back? Could you like? Why on earth are you doing that?
Because that's the only way that the math would work. And here's the thing, though: if they don't move Collins for DeJounte Murray, which it sounds like they may not, then they are using Gallo. If they're using Gallo, I wonder if that actually will have to increase the price of picks because
100%.
Collins is worth more than Gallo. So it's like, are you willing to trade 4 first-round picks, for example, and salary filler, whatever it might be, even though Murray could slide into the space pretty much, for DeJounte Murray? And for me, the answer is no, because I think that just based on how the timeline is working out, the Knicks are saying, yeah, we want these picks, but we don't want to use them right now. And it's just like there's this consistent nature of trying to get a star, because it's been so long since the Knicks have gotten a star where one suddenly becomes available and it's like, we need this guy. We're like Kevin Durant before Kyrie opted in. It was the thought process of how he would be available, and you get Woj saying, well, Kevin Durant won't have his say in where he goes, and that's bullshit. We know it's bullshit. I'm sorry if cursing's not cool, but
No, you can do whatever you
cool.
want.
It's fucking bullshit. So it's the sort of thing where it's just like, okay, like Durant is going to have his say in where he goes. He's not going to go to the Knicks. And yet I still already saw people killing the front office for not getting Kevin Durant in a scenario that never was going to happen and didn't even have the opportunity to happen. And it's just like, what is going on? And so I respect that DeJounte Murray is an all-star and he's the same age pretty much as Brunson, and he probably has a higher ceiling. But
He's a better defender.
100%.
He's a walking triple-double, right?
Exactly. It's just, is he worth giving up the assets that it will cost? And to me, the answer is no. As good as he is, but it also minimizes Brunson because he's a really good player as well.
So let me ask you this about the assets, like moving assets for like DeJounte Murray. Where would you want to move assets like that? Like a true star like Donovan Mitchell? Are you looking for like a massive upgrade of like the wing position? Is that what you're thinking of? Like when you're thinking about trading those type of assets? Because as we see in the league today, your wing players, they're kind of difference makers.
They are 100%. I think the big thing for me is I would love the Knicks to trade up in next year's draft. Going into this year's draft, my mindset was get someone who can be a primary option either this year or next year. And obviously they did not do that this year. Ivy wouldn't have been like the 2-3 type player that the Knicks could have gotten. He's more of a 2, but he's shorter. I guess in my mind, it's like, can you find a prospect in next year's draft where they basically have the same height and size, but longer wingspan as Evan Fournier, who can basically do what Cam Reddish does, but better, and all while being on a dirt cheap contract compared to what you would be paying to another star? Obviously, the risk is you're betting on a prospect versus betting on someone who's an established a star, but the cost would likely be cheaper. So like if the Knicks are finishing, let's say they get bounced in the play-in. Let's say there are a bunch of really good Western Conference teams, because it seems like there will be a lot of really good Western Conference teams. If the Knicks are picking 11th or 12th again, we're right back in the same spot. And then you factor in the Mavs first. And then probably none of the future firsts they got will convey next year. So you're looking at future picks, which is more advantageous perhaps for some of these teams. So like if the Mavs finish even 20th and the Knicks are 12th, can you do 12 and 20 and any other assets to move up to like 7, 8? Is that something that gets you into the range where you find a player that you fall in love with, especially if you're Walt Perrin? That to me is kind of like how you can have your cake and eat it too. It's not getting the established star, but it's also betting on a homegrown younger player that fits the timeline. You're not essentially nuking your cap sheet. It's very clean, especially when that cap spike comes. And it's the sort of thing where you can just like rally around it. Like the last thing I'll say is you look at these other teams that are rebuilding and they've basically just tanked. It's like, it's OKC, it's Houston,
Orlando,
like, oh, perfect. Yeah. Like, and you look at it, it's like, they look so good because they've got 3, 4, maybe even 5 young guys that were drafted top 15 or that have popped. And it's really exciting. And for the Knicks, it's just not that at all. So that the core is perceived differently. And I'm not saying the fans have to, like, how fans perceive cores is what matters. It's not. But if you're able to find a situation that gets you half pregnant, then it's one of the rare times that it works for all sides involved. So that's kind of where I would see it going. And then you have a lot of other assets down the line that you still have left that you can then figure out what to do with as well.
You're saying all assets and you're saying everyone's on the same timeline. I just that's the only thing I really don't agree with. I think that Leon Rose has a vested interest in Tibbs. And I don't think they have a timeline where they're doing all this so they could trade up for a player next year, be mediocre this year again, go through like this year was hell. You know,
I'm not suggesting to try to be. They're going to try to win 100%.
No,
it's just a matter of
like in this scenario,
right.
If we keep the same team, you could want whatever, but you have to
sure,
stay in reality. If you're going to run it back, we're going to run it back, and we're going to be in mediocre land. And now we're trying to trade up for next year to draft the rookie. Hopefully the draft, the lottery goes our way, the draft goes our way, just so we can be back with another rookie for Tibbs. That to me screams, yes, if you want to be a healthy, like you said, healthy cap, basketball team, how you should build it from the ground up. If you're asking me how should we build a franchise, I agree. It's just not the reality, because if that happens, Tibbs is gone. So why would he agree to this? And Leon Rose might be gone at that point. I know, like it sounds like that's crazy, but if we don't make the playoffs again and we're a lottery team this year, and just to trade up for another pick, he might have maybe until like the trade deadline again. He's not going to have that much longer. Especially if we're signing Brunson, Rick Brunson, to be an assistant coach, obviously because he's friends with Tibbs, obviously so we can get Jalen here. If we pay him $100 million and he turns out to be mediocre because we had a mediocre season, it just, to me, it sounds nice on paper, and I agree. It just doesn't feel like that's what's happening here. It doesn't feel like that's what the Knicks are doing. At the same time, I agree that it might not be, as much as I love DeJounte Murray. I'm one of the guys, I love him. I think he's perfect for the Knicks. I think he's perfect for Tibbs. I think he's a great contract that we can work him in next year. And who cares about these picks? You can't tell me at one point, this is the worst trade ever for the Knicks. They're so dumb. These picks are worth nothing. And then tell me, oh my God, we cannot trade these picks for DeJounte Murray. We have to keep them. They're priceless. It just doesn't make any sense. And if it's coming down to just the 11th, like the Knicks, Begley mentioned it, but I didn't hear any more of it. He was on Chris Williamson. I remember them saying the deal breaker was the Knicks wouldn't include their own pick next year. So if this whole thing is about an 11th or 12th pick, then what are we talking about? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I hear you. The difference though is that next year's draft is supposed to be so much stronger than this year's, and so like All right. I know that obviously a couple weeks ago we wouldn't have predicted that DeJounte Murray would be on the block. So like anything can happen. But let's think about it. The big name, obviously, that probably comes on that's available is Donovan Mitchell, right? What happens if the Jazz retool and then want to consistently run it back and they even get better? Or Danny Ainge just doesn't want to trade Donovan Mitchell because it's the sort of thing where it's like why does Utah trade?
Scared. I'm scared to trade with Utah personally. I'm actually terrified of that. Yeah, I'm not trying to do that.
Sure. So like those guys are out of the equation.
Yeah.
Where do we turn to next? Because, and yes, a lot can change, right? Like you have the same situation with Kevin Durant, and I still like he'll be 35. That's not the direction to go. And this obviously this being not this summer, but the next one. He'd be 35. Like you can run down the list of teams. It's like, well, what star might be interested in going? Like again, I'm gonna look at Tankathon and run through it real quick. Typically for the guys who are in their primes or entering their primes, you need at least 2 years of, or at most 2 years of team control before they're able to walk away. So SGA is not going anywhere. The Rockets don't have anyone who's going to be available in that sense. So we're talking about like De'Aaron Fox. Well, you just spend money on Brunson hypothetically. So, and I doubt that they would trade Fox unless it's for a better player than who he is. Knicks don't have that available. The Magic aren't really going to be in consideration. The Pacers don't have anyone. The Pistons don't either.
Brogdon.
But yeah, he's
Let's not even talk about Brogdon. I'm not even going to entertain that idea.
Exactly. Like, okay, are we talking about Bradley Beal? Is Bradley Beal the sensible choice if the Wizards decide to move him?
He's going to resign in Washington.
Right, but like if he gets Blake Griffined a year from now, as opposed to like
no.
Right, like
see, that's yeah. If he gets the max, like was it 250? I think is like they can max him out
like that. Yep,
that's gonna be like one of the worst contracts moving forward because he's not that dude.
Right. So okay. Next, you go to the Spurs. Well, they'll probably be trading Murray, so they've got no one that's really left. You got the Blazers. They're in win now mode. They're not going to break anything up. The Hornets, like, it's not going to be LaMelo. I don't understand. I don't know why they would trade him.
Clifford, baby, he's back.
That's
the
only reason. You got the Cavs who are in win now mode. We just talked about the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell. Ant and Cat aren't going anywhere out of Minnesota. Atlanta is keeping Trae Young and trying to add DeJounte Murray to that. Like, are the Raptors trading Siakam? I doubt it.
They might trade OG.
Right, but if they're trading OG, it would probably be this year. It might be for Gobert. That's the other thing where they're able to do that. The Lakers, like LeBron and Anthony Davis, they're not going anywhere. You're talking about the Pelicans. I know we talk about Zion.
THT, baby. We all want that THT contract.
Exactly. But like, I don't see Zion going anywhere. I don't see why Ingram would be moved. They're a winning team.
CJ's amazing.
CJ is. He's also making $33 million a year. He's going to get a new contract soon.
I would pay that. Like, honestly, he's worth it for me. I know that sounds crazy, but I love CJ. The way he navigated Portland and what he's doing in New Orleans. But yeah, I digress.
Yeah,
I would pay. That's one guy I would be like, all right, no problem.
I understand. But then it's the question, like, would you rather have CJ at like 32, 33, or would you have Brunson at like 26, 27, 28? Then we have the Nets. Not going to happen. The Clippers not doing anything. Maybe if Chicago blows up and something happens, like, is
so you want to stay? You want to stay? You're good with our picks, and you just want to wait till next draft. Kind of bring Brunson back, run it back. Don't do anything crazy. Don't even look at the superstar guys that are on the block. Don't even take a look at the mediocre guys like Brogdon, like Tyus Jones. Just chill out. Maybe trade Fournier or Burks, get rid of Noel, and bring Brunson in and just run it back. Like that's what you think we should do.
No, I mean, definitely listen. Keep your ears and eyes open for sure. Like if an opportunity presents itself where you can't turn it down, then like obviously consider it. It's just a matter of, and like the rest of the teams are all like super contenders that aren't going to strip it down. So like, how are you able to do that? How are you getting that guy? And if you're not getting the guy, you need something, right? Because I feel like you can't go into the season, not this one, but the one after, basically like taking incremental steps to the point where it's hopefully RJ is really good and Brunson's good and whatever else you have left. But if you have something that's really exciting, that's young, that can work with the team, like there are 10 guys in this next draft that I think could have, from talking with Prez, who's really great with draft stuff, who like could have gone top 5 this year. Like that's how crowded it is. If you can nab one of them and work your way through it, that's how you sell it to fans. And like but it's not just the young guys and go out and do things. It's the young guys plus veterans that will help them win games. All they have to do is keep taking steps and sell something to fans and win games. That's the only way. Well, not the only way, but like, that's how you keep your job if you're Leon Rose. And you just keep building incrementally. And then finally, when you have the right opportunity, you can strike. The problem is that it's like, with my plan in mind, how do you tell a fan, hey, you know how you've waited all these years? You know how this is now the 3rd Leon Rose season? Well, wait another 3 years.
Yeah.
It's hard to sell people on that, which is why, if like, considering how many people were on board with Jaden Ivey, that to me, it's the same philosophy just a year later. Like if we walked into this year and it was RJ Barrett, Jaden Ivey, Obi Toppin, Emmanuel Quickly, Quentin Grimes, Cam Reddish, and
they could do it all wrong.
But we would be psyched.
Yeah.
We would be really excited.
We could literally
that.
win 0 games and be like, "Oh, this is amazing! It's fantastic." I agree.
And obviously, the following year they can't win 0 games, and like, they still need to keep building and building and keep winning games. But like that to me is how you sell it. That's how you can have a winning product and feel like you're selling something to fans that is exciting.
And like, look, this is why when I'm watching the draft, I'm getting angry because you think of it, oh, well, the last time like we actually had true success, you know, besides 2021 was when we had Mel back in 2012, 2013. And before that, you're like, oh, great. So we got to go back to 2000 now. And it's like, come on, guys. Like it's been long enough. And so that's where the frustration is. And like being on Knicks Fan TV, like you see, we had all the frustration. People called in. It was very, very repetitive where it was like, oh, well, why they do this? Why they do that? And you're like, I get you. I'm right here with you. And I feel the pain.
The only pushback to that for me, it's like, it's an unfortunate position for anyone to be in, but because we have been so hurt over the years, we bring our past baggage and the sins of old regimes and place them on this one.
100%.
Like, here's the thing. A lot of these teams that are set up for a rebuild, like I said, the Thunder, the Rockets, the Magic, not only are they all small market teams, the reason that they are further ahead already is because they all had top talent that they then traded and were able to retain those assets and further go into a deeper rebuild. The closest that the Knicks got to that was Porzingis. The closest before that was trading Melo when he had a no trade clause and like he had very few options on the table and resisted going anywhere. The Knicks never had that luxury of like, how can we turn the draft and cap space into winning product or winning players and then trade those out for assets for the future? Like the Thunder did it with all of their guys, Chris Paul, Gallinari, Russ, you name it. The Rockets did it with Harden, and the Magic did it with Vucevic. They even got, I mean, it was minimal what they got with Fournier. Aaron Gordon, they got a nice haul back. Like these are starters that have been able to get to like the ages of 25, 26, 27 and beyond, where they were able to like develop on their own time. But because the Knicks are on a clock, because like it's been almost 50 years since they won a title and we're not going to live forever. So let's get this moving. And it's just like, it just takes more time than that, but it's not time we as fans are comfortable with because of all of the years and all of the disappointment we've had beforehand.
You know, Jeremy, you psychoanalyzed me today. I feel like your actual job is being a therapist. I feel like you actually do yoga and you take like you have like do you have an Apple Watch and it says, all right, mindfulness every morning and you just go through your mindfulness? Because this is how I can only imagine they're able to say like, look, man, we've been through a lot as Knicks fans, all right? But we're cool. I'm calm. I'm collected. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I got my chai tea with me. All right. I'm ready to go today. I'm ready to take on the world.
You know, yeah. But that's the thing. If someone came up to me, like with the draft, it was sort of thing where it's like, I feel on top of the world. Great. Do that. Or if someone's feeling like, I want to jump off of a bridge. Be like, well, maybe don't do that. But like, I can't help but understand why you're at that point. Like, if something's really
Thank you for understanding.
Of course. Like if something's really bad, I'm gonna say, damn, that's really bad. I'm an optimist at heart, but like I try to parse out what's good, what's bad, and like for the first time, we're seeing the workings of a smart front office, because what we had beforehand was Steve Mills, and that just like very little was bright about that.
Exactly.
So, and memories are short, and Phil Jackson wasn't great. Like you keep going back and back, and it's just like,
Oh,
as
this
you
is
said,
by
Alex,
far
the last time that the Knicks had a good team, 2012, 2013, and like that was ages ago. Like,
Yeah.
I just like the children that were born then are like halfway on their way to college by this point.
How dare you talk about Chris
We were in
like that?
college.
I was in high school. It was great. Now I'm not. I'm an adult. And I have not seen a playoff win since. So,
Tough,
but that's true. I've seen one. Haven't seen a playoff series win.
Yeah, we saw one measly win, and we also saw Trae Young rip our absolute hearts out.
Yep, I was there for that one. That was painful.
Yeah, they're tough, man. It was a tough time at the Garden. Alex, are you good with Brunson and just hanging out, trading up next year, kind of just chilling, see what goes on? Jeremy's plan.
I'm fine with the plan. I mean, the thing is, like, the thing right now where I'm still in between, even though Jeremy's talked me off from the ledge, is that free agent still has to come, right? We still have to see the team execute, get Brunson, get the guy that they want. And also with my past trauma being a Knicks fan, it's like, oh my God, it's just not gonna happen. It's all in on Brunson. Is Brunson not coming? And you're just like gripping at the table, just shaking everything. You're like, so at this point, it's waiting until what happens this free agency. But even if they don't get Brunson, like worst case scenario is that no, I'm just like saying, like
the world melts, man. The Knicks Twitter melts. The articles come out. We move the world. No one wants us.
Knicks Twitter will explode, but I look at it as, okay, if you could still peel back some of the vets and let most of the young kids play, you're still winning in that case, like because they're gonna get the experience. That's if they do that at least. So
yeah,
that's where I'm at.
The only thing is if they don't get Brunson, then the whole thing is you telling me you traded 4 second-round picks and into the first round, and you didn't get Ivy, and you dumped Kemba for what reason exactly when you could have just told him to stay home, like with John Wall. Like, if you couldn't get Brunson, why wouldn't you do everything to get Jaden Ivey? What's your backup plan? Like, no one wants to sit through Malcolm Brogdon, especially if you're paying a premium to get him.
Tyus Jones.
Right. Like, it's at the certain point where it just feels like if you can't get someone who's like your second son into the building, who your own biological son represents as part of CAA, what kind of cachet do you have? What pull is there? And that doesn't feel confident about like future free agencies that I'm talking about. Because if you can't get Brunson, I get it. Situation could be better, more money, all that. But like, it would just be repeating the same thing that happened with Porzingis and KD and all that, which is why I feel good about where the Knicks are with Brunson, because I don't think they do it unless they have a firm commitment, and the ties are too strong to ignore that.
Yeah, for sure. I think we can stand like feeling like 80, 90%, however percentage you want to feel that Brunson's on his way. But even still, I still look at it as from the player, you just went to the Western Conference Finals. Tough conference. Like, it's going to be much tougher next season. Maybe that's Brunson's outlook at it, right? Like, oh crap, like we made it to the Western Conference Finals this year, but Clippers are going to be back. Nuggets are about to be back. Portland is retooling. Like, all these other teams are on the up and up. Like, you got the Timberwolves on the up and up. You got the Pelicans on the up and up. I may just want to go to the East and go, Knicks weren't too far out of it. If I can go over there, it kind of makes sense for me to go be in the playoffs still and still have some success. It makes sense, but I wouldn't fight Brunson, like not physically fight, but like say like, like I would understand saying, hey, I understand why you want to stay with the team that legitimately just made it to the Western Conference Finals. But I'm with you guys where it's like the ties are just too close, where it's like you're not making these moves unless you have some sort of like under the table deal ready to go and pulling all the strings for this. But Jeremy, I got a question for you, man, because since we got you on here and being the capologist that you are, we got Mr. RJ Barrett going to be due for an extension.
And Mitch, hopefully. I guess he's a free agent now.
He's a free agent, but I'm like, but for like RJ, July 1st comes around, he's eligible for an extension. Are you extending him this season, or are you waiting until the end of the season and then giving him his new contract?
So probably not. Since he's not going to get the 5-year full max, he's probably not going to sign this summer. But there's up until October, there's a deadline there. I think that's probably when he would resign. Knowing the way that the Cavs operated and how Brock Aller, coming from Cleveland, thinks.
How your
my
father,
guess, yes. So as Pop used to say, Pop, lock him up and drop it.
Oh my God.
So if you lock up RJ on a contract, you pay a slight premium. It's the same way with Randle, and this is another reason why I am hopeful, just based on the circumstances with Randle. Like Randle, if he weren't signed to a contract, would be a free agent. And yes, the Knicks could just sign Jalen Brunson, not have to worry about a lot of the other stuff. But a big reason why they did extend Randle, maybe it's because he fits in the future plans, but also they can now trade him to any team that they want. 29 other teams, whereas beforehand, Randle would have to agree to that team. It would have to be a sign and trade, be a messy situation. And then you don't have to worry about like a lot of the cap hoops that you'd have to jump through, like a sign and trade hard caps teams and that stuff. So like with RJ, the whole point would be ideally there's a future with RJ in mind, but you lock him down, you get him on a little bit more than he might be making as of right now, because you're betting on potential and you're betting on projection. RJ could feel like, I want to bet on myself. I don't want to sign this contract. But I think there's also something to be said of the Knicks just locking into him. We don't have a messy situation like Gordon Hayward when the Jazz said, go get an offer and we'll match it. And Hayward went to the what was then, I guess, the Bobcats, or the Hornets, whichever. Got the offer sheet. Jazz matched it. Eventually went to the Celtics, then went back to the Hornets. One of the reasons he left, he felt slighted. He felt like he wasn't loved and prioritized enough, and I can't say I blame him. You avoid all of the bad feelings by locking someone under contract from the get-go. They're committed. You're committed. You can move them if you absolutely need to without any real restrictions. I don't see him getting moved, like I said, but that to me is why it makes more sense than to drag it out. But if RJ wants a full max, doesn't want to compromise, it's a different story.
Okay. That's it. Hey, look, I don't think he'll go for obviously I think he'll try to get the full max, but I think there's like I think his camp is pretty smart saying, look, this is what the full max is. You haven't really earned the full max yet, unless he goes like on a tear year 4, right? So I think part of me doesn't see that unless like there's a major jump.
He's just going to negotiate with Puma. Whatever the extra millions are, like, dude,
hey,
if I'm going to stay in New York, it's going to make money. I honestly don't think that's an issue. I know that's kind of taboo, all right, because it's like player contracts, but I really think that's fine. Let me hit you with a couple rapid fire, really quick, questions and answers here regarding, because you're the cap guy here, cap or no cap, Knicks Film School. Let's just get really quick on what the Knicks should do. So we got your take on RJ. He's going to wait. Probably not sign the full max. That's going to work out for us. What are we going to do with Mitch?
I'd like to see him on basically the mid-level exception. That would be a good number. Have it every year goes down instead of up by 8%. That'd be cool.
And
mid-level exception is like $45 million.
So do you think that that's more or less than they were kind of negotiating with during the season? Right?
It's probably certainly less than what Mitch would have wanted.
Yeah, because we know he wanted the max.
Well,
it was like 50 something, right?
Yeah, but it's possible. I mean, my guess is the Knicks did not. Well, I know that the Knicks probably wanted to lock him in for dirt cheap, because the way they looked at it is, we want to go under the cap for Brunson. If we sign Mitch now, then that creates more problems because you're adding however much money. So, yeah, I mean, his market seems to be dead. I don't really know where he would go. So no team without a sign and trade can offer more than the mid-level exception. I think that's a pretty good number.
So Mitch stays. Sims obviously stays, barring a crazy trade where he's included. And where does that fit Noel? Are we just going to run it back with that?
No, I think he's gone. It's just a matter of where and for how much, maybe any money coming back. Again, if the Jazz trade Gobert, I'd like to see Noel slide into a trade player exception they have. He fits just enough. I think he's the perfect mold and what the Jazz like in a 5. So I think he'd be good there. He's probably also their best bet at getting a legitimate 5, unless they, I don't know, trade for Pirtle or someone, which they could. I could see it, but I don't know what assets they really have.
And then Taj getting cut and coming back. That's about right.
Why not? Sure.
Okay,
Love Taj.
cool. All right.
Bring
So
him
are
back.
we keeping D Rose? I mean, there was the latest rumor was Milwaukee, which makes sense for them as a basketball team. And it makes sense for D Rose as a human, right? He's from Chicago, from the area. Do you see that kind of making any sense for us cap wise, at least?
I guess. I mean, either way, like I don't really want Rose here because I want Quickly to be the backup point guard and I want Grimes to be there. And if there's a trade or if Cam's still here, then like you got 1, 2, 3. So, but Matt, I mean, cap wise, it doesn't really matter. You could spin it as above the cap, below the cap, depending on what they want to do. If it's one or the other, it's not a guaranteed contract as last year, so it's fine. But
Okay.
I guess he's staying.
That's fair. And we'll say Cam is going to be gone in some trade. Last question, just on the Knicks side, Burks or Fournier, what are we doing there?
Trading Burks, keeping Fournier.
Okay, just contract base wise, or okay, that's fine. So we got what you're going to do with the Knicks. We signed Brunson. Is there anything else we're doing in free agency? I forget the trades. I know we want to make a million trades. But is there anything? There is an interesting. We mentioned Tyus Jones kind of in passing here. Alex says, "Please God, no." Right? And that's how he feels, even though it's for way cheaper. Like, is there anybody you could speak on Tyus Jones about? Is there any other players, maybe a wing, that the Knicks could kind of slide in there? I didn't ask you about Randle or Obi, by the way. I'm just going to assume they're going to stay. I know you want to trade Randle. Everyone wants to trade Randle. I won't even ask you. So just as it stands, is there anyone that could kind of fit that kind of wing spot?
Kyle Anderson. I mean, it's an option. He's probably more of a 4 than he's a 3, depending on how he's used. But someone, I don't think
Maybe
the
a
Knicks
Tibbs
would go
guy.
after him. But yeah, exactly. I mean, like this is a lazy reason. Like he's from New York, so like that sort of mindset where
It's kind of like Burks. Just a little
yeah. Like he's a Spurs system guy. Like he's only played at smart locations, so I'll go with him.
All right, that's fair. Alex, you have someone on your mind? I know Tyus Jones ends up on the Knicks. I'm gonna send help to Alex's house. But do you have anyone on your mind, Alex?
No, I think for the most part we're going to see a lot of the same players on the Knicks, especially from the youth standpoint. Mostly the vets just getting out of here. I think that's what it is. So, but hey, Jeremy, thank you for coming on and answering all of our questions and everything. So please let our listeners know where they should already know where to find you, but please let our listeners know where they can find you.
Well, thank you for having me, guys. It's been a blast. You can find me on Twitter at the Coincidence, COHENCIDENCE. Do stuff for Knicks Film School, a little bit of the Strickland, but less so these days. Knicks Film School keeps me pretty busy. So I do a show called Cream. Capital's everything around me. Cream, not the salary cap. Every
dollar bills, y'all.
Exactly. Every Wednesday or so, we'll do one this Wednesday. I think it's 6:30, and then Thursday night we'll be doing a live draft show and just breaking everything down, trying to make sense of everything. Hopefully, it's a lot less confusing than the draft was. Somebody tells me.
Hopefully, it is.
I'm still hoping for chaos. I think in my heart of hearts, I believe that the Knicks are exact replicas of this new Jets GM, and everything we know about Leon Rose, he keeps everything to the chest. I mean, what was the percentage of people that had them even trading back? That was a low percentage, just as it was. And from then, who would have thought that we're going to make all these crazy trades? At the end, all we're doing is dumping Kemba. Like, nobody knows what this team is doing. Everything that comes out is nonsense. So I'm hyped, man. I really believe that the Knicks are going to do something within the next couple of weeks. So I'm hyped, man. Maybe it's my hopium, all right? Maybe it's I know.
All up on the hopium.
I'm the
Too much opium.
I'm the crazy optimist. I know it all. I've heard it 1,000 times, but that's my take right now. I'm hoping for a good, nice tampering period, a solid free agency, enough with the rumors. I'm so sick of rumors.
We're almost there. We
Yeah.
got less than
Yeah,
3
we're
days.
at this point. It feels like we're inching closer and closer.
Christmas
every
Eve.
single day.
Christmas Eve is coming.
That's a fact. But hey, Jeremy, thank you for coming on the show. And to our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. As always, you know what to do. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast. We're available on all audio listening platforms: Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, Alexa, Stitcher, you name it. We're there. All right. Please make sure to give us that 5-star rating. Please make sure to leave a comment. Make sure to go find the YouTube page, subscribe, hit that notification bell, do all those things. Leave a comment, hit the like button, and check out all of our other material out there. Winning Picks Weekly. We got so much. All right. So much. And then finally, make sure to follow us on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. We are there. Thank you again for Jeremy Cohen, the coincidence, for coming on the podcast. We out.
Let's go Knicks.